I'm here with Mark Russinovich at TechEd Berlin 2010, and as you might know, Mark moved from the Windows platform, Windows group, to the Azure-team.
That's right.
Why? What happened?
So actually what happened is I'm good friends with Dave Cutler and Bob Muglia. Bob Muglia is the head of the server and tools division, which Windows Azure's part of. Dave Cutler was the original creator of Windows NT, and so I'd known him for a long time, and he was one of the original people that went and started the Windows Azure group back in 2006. Right as I joined Microsoft, he left and with a bunch of Windows people and set off on Windows Azure. So I've been talking to them, on and off, and in the spring I started having conversations with them and Ray Ozzie as well, saying, hey, why don't you come to the cloud? We're defining the future of what the cloud platform as a service really is, and it's a great time to come over and help define that future. And so I decided to take advantage of that.
And what is your role within that team?
So the Windows Azure platform group, kind of the operating system for the cloud, has 4 teams in it: storage, networking, fabric controller, which I'll come back to, and developer experience, like the tooling and the portal. Yeah. The fabric controller is kind of the kernel of that operating system and of the distributed cloud operating system.
So that's where you drop in, right?
That's where I drop in, yeah.
So your experience with that. So do you have to change things in the kernel to make an operating system run in the cloud?
You don't have to change the operating system. I mean, the cloud operating system really is a layer that's on top of like Windows. Yeah. But one of the things that Dave came over to do when he started the Windows Azure team was to customize Windows, to optimize it to run on the cloud hardware, the blades that we've got in our data centers, and to make the hypervisor tuned for cloud-like workloads, the I/O patterns, the memory patterns that we see in cloud workloads, to squeeze all the efficiency we can, because it's running in our cloud. It's not a general-purpose operating system. We can tune it, right, and it doesn't need to run on all hardware. It just needs to run well on our hardware.
And what are your expectations? Are people now at this moment in time? There's a lot of cloud computing being announced here at TechEd, and we've learned about platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and software as a service. And what are your expectations? Do we have to move to the cloud in let's say 2 or 3 years, maybe longer, maybe shorter? What's your feeling about that?
Well, I don't think anybody has to move to the cloud. I think it's in their best interest to. I think that the amount of money you can save by moving to the cloud in terms of operations, management, and hardware costs and maintenance are tremendous potential. Ideally, if you're not developing your own applications, then you'd consume everything as software as a service. And you already see a big move in this direction to have email outsourced. But you're going to see lots of, Salesforce.com, right? This is another way of outsourcing software as a service. And you're going to see a lot more of that. But then there's companies that develop their own line of business software that they'll want to have be able to quickly deploy. The infrastructure as a service really is just taking Windows Server or server boxes and having somebody else manage those boxes. But you're responsible for everything else about them.
So you still install Windows.
You still install Windows on them, right? You still configure Windows. You install the application. You maintain Windows and the users, and so it's really aimed at just migrating legacy workloads onto somebody else's hardware. But that's not where you're going to get the big efficiencies. You get it from being able to write an app that's specifically targeted at the platform, at a platform as a service, where somebody else manages not just the hardware, but also the operating system and the runtimes, and they're patching it, and they're configuring the network, and they're doing basically everything except for running your app, writing your app. Right? So you deploy your app. And so if you look at the change in process between infrastructure as a service and platform as a service for somebody writing an application for a company, what we hear time and time again is somebody writes a line of business app, and they go to their IT department and say, we want to deploy this line of business app. And the IT department says, all right, well, how big of a server do you need? We need to order the server. What operating system do you need on it? We'll configure that. What network connectivity do you need? What runtimes do you need? Well, by the way, this will all take 6 months. The average rollout of line of business application through these processes is 3 to 6 months. Yeah. So what we also see now is that developers, these line of business developers in these departments and companies just bypass now the IT department, write the application, and literally in days have it running up in the cloud.
That is one of the biggest improvements.
Yeah.
And is it green IT? more or less? Does it do
Yeah.
green IT a little bit?
Well, actually,
than we have
there was just a study came out last week that talked about how cloud computing is greener than these standalone servers. And actually, I think you get a lot of you leverage somebody else's expertise for all of these things. Like even you leverage somebody else's customized hardware, so to be as green as possible. They know how to consolidate. You know, Microsoft, when Windows Azure is consolidating workloads across onto blades very efficiently. So you're leveraging all that in terms of green as well. Plus, you know, things like security, which we're going to have a security panel. Yeah, you're leveraging Microsoft's expertise in securing a data center and securing the data and the operating system and everything in a way that would be, you'd have to have very skilled people to get the same level of assurance with your own security processes, with your own servers on premise. Yeah.
So I hear a lot of people in the field that say, okay, I would really love that idea for cloud, but my data, where is it going? Am I sure that this data is in a data center in the UK instead of in Germany or in Japan or wherever?
Yeah.
So I think that's important for people too, to know that it's a secure platform and that really doesn't really matter where the data is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certain regulations that countries have about where data can be stored. Yeah. And one of the things Azure does is let you specify exactly where you want your data. So you can say,
really?
You can say I want it to be in Northern Europe, or I want it to be in Hong Kong, or I want it to be in, you can specify exactly where Northwest United States. And you might have preferences based on locality with your own data centers, your own servers, your own on-premise infrastructure, or it could be for compliance.
So a lot of cloud computing. I read the session guide for TechEd this year, and I believe you have 6 sessions?
Four
sessions. And 2 of them are cloud related.
No, just one actually.
Just one, and the security panel. Maybe.
And the security panel.
Has cloud security in it. So there's
I count that as,
You can count it as cloud,
so
right?
there's 5,
Okay, then
5 sessions then, if you include
somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And your own cloud session. What's that about?
It's called Inside Windows Azure, and my passion is really getting in and understanding the way things work underneath the hood. And people always, IT pros for on-premise Windows and also developers like to know what's going on underneath the hood because they see the effects of their applications interacting with Windows or their line of business applications or third-party server applications. So they like to understand what's happening so they can better write the application or debug it or troubleshoot it or manage it. And I think the same thing applies to the cloud. People want to know, when I deploy an application, what is going on underneath the hood. Knowing the internals, besides understanding how your application might interact with the platform, it also gives you confidence about what's happening. And once you understand it, you can say, okay, now I know that this is what's happening and what kind of functionality and the services I'm getting for it. So, so it's an Inside Azure talk. I'll talk about the Fabric controller.
Again?
It's really kind of 300.
Okay.
So
that's so even I can understand that.
Yeah.
I hope. This
Sure
morning,
you can understand 400.
This morning I was watching your memory internal session,
Yeah.
part 1, and there's a part 2 late this evening, this afternoon.
Yep.
So that was really level 400, right?
Yeah, I tried to make it level 400.
One of the things is that you are able to explain difficult stuff to people like me. And that's one of the things that we must get out of the world, because I was a little bit afraid that you would stop writing on SysInternals tools and stop writing the Windows internals books, and because you moved to another team. So can you get those rumors out of the world now?
Yeah. So
will you still be writing Windows internals?
I'll be doing one last edition probably of Windows internals. This is the 6th edition that's on Windows 7 and Server 2000 R2. Me and Dave Solomon and Alex are working on it right now. It's tough finding the time to finish it, and it's because it's a lot of work. But we are committed to getting that out first part of next year. And as far as SysInternals, that's always been a hobby for me. And so I'll continue to maintain the tools. I'm releasing a major update to Process Explorer this week.
Oh, cool.
And
any important changes for Process Explorer?
Yeah, it now tracks network and disk I/O, for example. There's a bunch of little enhancements along with it, but those are a couple of the main things. Nice. And then I'm also going to be writing SysInternals tools for Azure. So I'm working on the first one. It's
of course.
So it's a Storage Explorer for Windows Azure Storage. So it's about 80% done. Hopefully have it out in the next month or so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then this morning you told me about a new book that you're writing.
Yeah.
Zero Day.
Yep.
What's that about?
It's actually a book that I already wrote. In fact, I wrote it a long time ago, and just the publishing, try to get a book really published by a major real publisher is extremely difficult. It took many years to work my way through the system and actually get a publisher. So it's coming out in March of next year with St. Martin's Press, actually a division of St. Martin's Press in the United States. It's already got an Amazon.com page. The book is
You can pre-order?
You can pre-order it, yeah. But 0 day is the term in the security research world for a vulnerability that is being exploited out in the wild, a bug in a program, where there's no fix for it. And so it's 0 day exploit is the worst kind because the malware can run free basically without anybody being able to stop it. So the premise of the book is that you've got Arabs that are in leagues with Al Qaeda, want to wreak havoc on the West, and they want to do it in a very cost-efficient way and low risk. And cyber terrorism or cyber warfare is a way to do that. Basically, for not much money, you can spread malware that does just really bad things to people's data and their computers, and that's what the book's about. That kind of plot.
So it's a novel.
It's a novel, yeah.
It's not a techie book like we used to.
It's a cyber thriller, is what it's. Yeah.
Right. That is cool.
Yeah.
So, have you had any comments yet back from people that wrote the script? Are you excited?
Well, actually, I've got a blurb from Bill Gates about it. It's on the book. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's somebody people might know.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that is something different.
Yeah.
You're planning for a new career
exciting.
move.
Yeah.
So after Windows Azure, you will be the next writer for like Stephen King or something.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. People like it.
That is cool. Well, and so what can we expect from you next year? You're writing on SysInternals tools, Storage Explorer for Azure. Next year we'll be back at TechEd, of course.
Yep.
What kind of things are you thinking of? What kind of sessions are we getting then from you?
Well,
of course we hope to get the case of the
the case of the
kind of case of the memory is missing, processors are missing. That kind of sessions, we all love that. But
yeah, I love doing those sessions, and I know people really like them, so I'll try to continue doing those. I'm sure that there'll be an update to the Windows Azure internals talk because Windows Azure, the cloud is constantly shipping, so there's always changes, so there'll be new things to talk about there. And potentially, and I'll be thinking about other Azure type talks to go into other areas as well. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So what's up next? One more day of TechEd?
One more day, yeah.
Then
few
fly home?
more talks, yeah. Fly home. Yep.
Okay. Well, then I
back to work on the fabric team.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Something must be done at Azure itself, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your stay here.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Thank you.
This is hi to the UK and you guys back in Manchester. Having a good time here in TechEd.
Hola España, bienvenidos al TechEd.
Bonjour la France, bienvenue au TechEd.
مرحبا السعودية عبد الله حنتوش من الشركة السابق.
Hallo Deutschland, willkommen zur TechEd in Berlin.
I'm here with Jeffrey Snover in TechEd Berlin, and we are here to discuss Powershell, because you are the Powershell dude, right? That's what I've been told. So what I think is, what is one of the things that's important for IT professionals right now is to start working with Powershell.
Yes, absolutely.
I can see more and more applications use PowerShell, but of course IT pros are clickers, right? We click, and then something happens. So where do we start with PowerShell? What is your opinion about that? So where do we start learning PowerShell?
Yeah, really, you just jump into it, right? Which is to say, start PowerShell up. Typically you have your area, right? So it's Exchange, or it's SharePoint, or it's Link Server, or Windows Server. And what you do is just start PowerShell and load those modules, and then just start exploring, right? You might want to the PowerShell in the OS has a bunch of help. So there's a getting started guide and a user guide, and just read those and then just start to explore. Really the way to learn PowerShell is just to explore. There's this great story about an admin I met at TechEd New Orleans who said that his boss had said, hey, you got to learn PowerShell. And he said, heck no, I don't want to. I'm not a scripting guy. I don't want to do scripting. I'm a GUI guy. And his boss said, well, that's the job. And he said a week later, and so he did it, and he says a week later I was having so much fun. Oh my heavens, you guys have just produced a really fun product. And so that's really the way you learn, is by trying some things out, explore, and have fun.
Okay, that's the way to go then.
That's the way to go.
So and
jump in the pool and don't
just
sink.
Before you would start with it,
Yeah.
I always like to learn from the architecture perspective.
Okay, yeah.
So what is PowerShell exactly? How does it really work?
Yeah, so are you familiar with Unix?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little.
Okay, so the Unix model, basically, you run a command and it outputs text, right? And it's all this A pipe, A pipe to B, pipe to C.
Yeah.
It's all pipelining. And so I started by asking myself the question, well, why do we do that? And I thought about it and I said, well, there's two answers. One is, well, that's the model, right? In Unix, everything's these small little utilities that you compose together to solve unique problems. And that's great because problems always change.
Yeah.
So the ability to not have a hardwired tool gives you a lot of flexibility. But then I thought about it some more, and I realized, well, no, actually, the reason why you have to take A and then pipe it to B and then C is because A didn't do what you wanted to do. And then I asked the question, well, why didn't it do what you wanted to do? And I realized that what it was doing is it was tightly binding three things that should be loosely bound. A gets a set of objects, it processes those objects, and then it outputs the results as text. So when it doesn't do what you want it to do, what you're really saying is I didn't get the right objects, I didn't process them the way I wanted to, or I didn't output them as text the way I wanted to. So in Unix, what you have to do is you have this text, and you have to parse. You got to reverse engineer your way back to the original objects to do one of those steps differently. I call this prayer-based parsing. Have you ever done that? You see something and you got to go over 28, 27, 29 columns, cut something, it's a string, blah, blah, blah. Called prayer-based parsing. Okay. Yeah. Whereas what we do in PowerShell is it's an object model. So we take these three steps and we separate them and we put the pipeline between them. When you do a get PowerShell, it looks like you're getting text, but you're not. You're getting objects. And then when you want to manipulate those objects, you want to get to something where the handle count's greater than 500, instead of having to do a bunch of text-based parsing, you just say, well, get me the processes, pipe it to where the handles are greater than 500, pipe it to sort by handle count, and all that text just goes away. And so a lot of people hear, oh, object-oriented or object-based, and they get scared, but in fact, objects dramatically simplify the task for admins. And that's what makes it so much fun. Because what we end up getting into a world is where you think about what you want. You got to learn the syntax. Okay, and there's some learning there. There's no doubt about it. You just got to learn the syntax.
Looks like visual basic language. Looks like a little bit. Oh, isn't that true? I'm not really a programmer, right? I'm not really a scripter, but I recognize some of the commands that are there.
Yeah, it's its own thing. You can see part of C# in there.
I can even see Unix kind of commands.
Absolutely,
LS,
some Unix.
LS minus something.
LS,
LS, I've seen that.
Yeah. And then we also have some VMS DCL in there. So what we did was, we've got a really good team, and what we tried to do is to understand the pros and cons of each one of those things, and then build a system that had all the pros of one and none of the cons.
Have you done a lot of sessions here?
Yeah, today, in a little bit, I'll have my last one, and it's my fifth. Well, actually, 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you learning in that one?
Well, I did PowerShell for beginners. That was great. We had the room was 900 people, and I think it was almost full. And I asked them how many people have been using PowerShell, and how many people were new to it, and most of the hands went up.
Okay.
So
that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
But I think maybe that might be because, well, IT pros are a little bit afraid of it. Right?
Sure.
And I learned a little bit with it with using Exchange and System Center Virtual Machine Manager and Option Manager. And that was one of the ways that it really helped me to get into PowerShell a little bit, because you actually have a reason to do stuff.
Yes.
And then you can see, hey, this command works like this, and I can do it more easy if I do it like this. And that is one of the things that I really love.
Well, what's interesting is currently the #1 most popular, most active PowerShell community is VMware. VMware. And so I talked to those guys. I said, well, why is that? And they said, look, with virtualization, you have so many things. If you don't automate, you're dead.
Yeah.
If you try and do it by hand, you get inconsistency, you get error, and you just can't get the job done. I went to VMworld this year to kind of find out, well, what are they doing and why and et cetera. And I heard one guy said, oh, excuse me, I'm trying to change the NIC settings on 5,000 NICs. How do I do that? And the guy's like, PowerShell, my friend, PowerShell.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so you should be using hypervisor, of course, but anyway, the point is whenever you are dealing with large numbers of things, automation is your friend, but it's also quality. You know, I like to say, oh, you get some new thing, you're going to make some changes to Active Directory, right? Do you just go up to Active Directory and start changing them? Of course not. That would be insane. So first you set up a test environment, you make those changes in the test environment, and then if they work, then what's the story? You go to your live system and try and recreate those same 500 mouse clicks in the right order? Yeah. Right? That's crazy.
That's crazy.
But if instead you go and you create a script, I can create the script, I can give it to you. You can look at it. You can say, what happens if this goes wrong? And then we can talk about it and you say, okay, well, let's check for that and let's do this. Right? Yeah. And you can discuss it. You can't really discuss what is it you're going to click. No, right? It's just, and if something goes wrong, there's no way to say, well, what was I clicking and what went wrong? When you do things interactively and you've got this log file and you can go back and you can see, oh, here's what I did, I forgot that step. I forgot that step. Or, oh, that's what that error message was all about. Yeah. And so it really it transforms the way you manage systems for the better.
Yeah, and at this time we had PowerShell 1.0.
Yep.
And in R2 we got 2.0, right?
Yep. And Windows 7. Yep.
And Windows 7. And what's next? Because we've seen the visual script editor utility, right? That's really nice. But what's next in PowerShell? Where are we going?
So first is
PowerShell in the cloud. PowerShell as a service.
PowerShell everywhere.
PowerShell everywhere.
Yeah, indeed. You know, because we put it in the OS on by default in all the SKUs, and then it's available down XP and above. So it's basically everywhere. Yeah. And honestly, I think most anything anybody needs is available in PowerShell version 2. Now that said, we're investing heavily, largely in the areas of coverage. You see performance, we're going to do better there, better dealing with the problems that customers have, responding to their feedback. So there's a bunch of investment there. But honestly, I don't think that there's any blockers with what's in version 2 today. People can take version 2 and just go, go, go. And the communities out there, they're doing great things. Truly, PowerShell is a critical skill for IT pros. I think right now you have some early adopters who know PowerShell. Yeah. I think in a couple years, if you don't have PowerShell, you're going to be at a disadvantage because your peers who do know it are going to be the ones who are more productive, better quality, faster, and they're going to get the bonuses and paychecks.
And what's the future for CMD.exe?
CMD.exe.
Will it be totally replaced by PowerShell?
We're just having that conversation as to when. So CMD.exe, I like to say it's complete. We're guaranteeing its stability.
Finished, right?
Exactly. We're guaranteeing its stability by not changing it.
Yeah.
So, and that's been that way for, well,
ages.
10 plus years. Yeah, quite a long time. And so then the question is, well, when and how should we take it out of the operating system? So at some point we will, not sure when. It's used a lot. Anyone who's using it today shouldn't fear, but you also shouldn't. If you're going to go write a bunch of new stuff, I would not be writing on command.exe. It's got a lifetime. It's going to go away. PowerShell will be around for a very, 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 very long time.
One more question.
The other point of that is that if you take a look at Exchange or SQL or SharePoint or any of these guys, they're all basing their management on PowerShell. Right? Yeah. None of them are basing it on command.exe. So just think about what that means in terms of the lifetime of the technology.
That's, well, it will not be used anymore in a certain point.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe for these old applications. And there's one other question. That is, if I write a PowerShell script, it needs to be signed.
No, it can be signed.
Yeah, you have this option to allow all, it's the set execution policy command, right? But what if I really want to sign these PowerShell scripts?
Yep.
What do I need to do for that?
Oh, easy.
Let's say I have this, in my opinion, I have this great PowerShell script.
Yep.
And I want to share this with people.
Yep.
So what do I do to sign that? What needs to be done there?
So first, you don't have to. No. By sharing it, by digitally signing it, and you share it, then everyone knows that it really came from you, as opposed to you share it and then some evil person takes it and modifies it and says, oh, it's really from you. They'll be able to detect that. But what you have to do is you have to get a code signing cert. Now here's the trick. There's no easy way to get a code signing cert, right? You can have self-signing cert, and that's fine. Yeah. But then you and I have to agree, right? Yeah. But if you have your corporation, like most corporations, it's pretty easy to get a code signing cert. But if you're an individual and you want to get one, you got to go to VeriSign or whatever, spend $500 a year, whatever. That's why You know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Really, where we see people wanting to do code signing certs is on your production surface. Even in enterprises, a lot of them don't have everything be code signed certs or code signed scripts, but they will take their most important machines or those machines in the DMZ that are most at risk and say, oh, these things have to be digitally signed. And you might not expect this, but sometimes what they'll do is they won't say, well, they have to be trusted by people in by the company. Instead, what they'll do is they'll say, these machines will only accept digital signatures from our change review board. Okay, so someone wants to change something, they write a script, say, here's what I'd like to do to these machines. It goes before the change review board, they take a look at it and say, well, when are you going to do this? And what happens if it goes wrong? And have you notified these people? And okay, great, I'll sign it. And then
it's allowed to run.
Then it's allowed to run. That's the way I think most people are going to use digitally signed scripts.
Okay, and so for all those people are eager to learn for PowerShell, where do they go on the internet? Is there any good resource? Is there a PowerShell team blog site where we can go? Is there?
Yep, there's a ton of them. There's the PowerShell team blog site. There's TechNet, the scripting guys. They've got a great article. There's a PowerShell podcast. PowerShell.com, Power GUI. There's a ton of great tools out there. I mean,
are there PowerShell communities?
Yeah, there's a ton of them. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we can go and learn.
Yep.
Well,
yeah,
great.
and I strongly encourage. You know, people cannot be successful in PowerShell in IT without the community. With PowerShell, like last year, I got the #1 talk at TechEd.
Oh, yeah, congratulations.
And I would have failed completely if not for the PowerShell scripts that James O'Neill had written. I had this very complex environment, I had to automate it, and James had written some hypervisor scripts that I was able to use to make my presentation successful. So here I am, distinguished engineer, lead architect for server, and kind of the inventor of PowerShell, and man, I would have failed if not for the community. So get it? Yeah. Community matters. It's not just for the weak or the people who don't know anything. No, everyone needs to leverage the community.
That is great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And I'll hope to see you next year.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers.
Hi, who are you?
I'm Erwin Derksen from the Netherlands.
And why are you attending TechEd this year?
Well, because I have to keep up my knowledge, meet all the people, talk to colleagues, and see some nice sessions.
And did it work out for you?
Yeah, definitely. They are very it's too much to choose from.
Okay, so you have some favorite topics that you are following here?
Well, I think the desktop virtualization strategy is very interesting, like the VDI, RDS comparison, and of course also Windows 7 deployment, Active Directory, and I've also been to the pre-conference sessions about architecture, which were very interesting.
Okay, and who is your favorite speaker here?
Well, today my favorite session was definitely the one from Ruben Spruit and Jeroen van der Kamp about virtualization, performance statistics and that kind of thing. So that was a very good session.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay.